Okay, the lessons that I'm doing are on Skating in Central Park by Agnes Tate, and the lessons are on second grade standards. So, the first lesson that I have is Social Studies Art History. I'll start off by introducing Skating in Central Park, kind of a background and a background of Agnes Tate, and I will have the students tell the students a story in the difference in traditions from the 1890s till today, because the standard that I'm going by is students describing how everyday life of historical figures has changed from the present everyday life. Um, so, students will learn about the lives of different historical figures, and they will be given the chance to learn about different traditions in different regions of the United States and the difference in today's society and from when the historical figures were alive. The observations that I'll do first, we could pull up maps and globes, and each student will have the chance to come to the board and point out different states to the maps and discuss the differences in each region, and they can reflect on what they've learned about the difference in traditions. For my second mini lesson, it's going to be language arts and aesthetics. I came up with questions such as, what does the artwork remind you of? What is the mood of or tone of the artwork, and how does it make you feel? And what does the art mean, and what is the artist trying to tell us? The standard for this will be the students will recall information from experiences or gather information from provided sources to answer a question. So, to do this, I'll have students create a story for the artwork. They will use their answers to the aesthetic questions as guidelines for their writing. So, for example, if the artwork made them feel happy, their story would be of a happy day skating in the park. But if their artwork made them feel sad, the story may focus more on like the temperature or like how it was cold. So to assess them, the students will have to write their stories that I will read, and also the students will write the answers to their aesthetic questions and that their stories will be based off of. My second mini lesson would be math. I came up with questions for this as well, so things such as to introduce the lesson, so like what do you see in the artwork? How do objects in the foreground, background, and middle ground compare to each other as far as size-wise, anything like that? What elements and principles are used in the painting, and what is the author telling us with the painting? The standard that I would be using with this would be for students to measure to determine how much longer one object is than another, expressing the length difference in terms of its standard length unit. And so by having the students compare the difference in the size of the objects from the foreground, middle ground, background, they can do their practice on the different sizes. And what I would do is get a big blown up, put them in groups and get a big blown up picture and let them measure different objects and write the different measurements and compare where each object was compared to the measurement of the object. And then they can also compare the object as far as size wise. So compare like why a tree is so much bigger than a person, and how that gives it the realistic form that the artwork has. For the fourth mini lesson for science, I would introduce the painting. When I'm introducing the painting, I would talk about the season that it takes place. So we would talk about winter and how in winter it snows. And in this, they'll be learning about solids, which is the ice, liquids, the melting of the ice, and then gases, the moisture in the air. And so the standard that I would be working on is investigating the properties of matter and changes that occur in objects. And then the visual art standard would be creates artwork based on personal experience and selected themes. So, based on their individual ideas, thoughts, and feelings. So, for this, the students would create a snowman life cycle flip book, and they get to create their own snowman and create his little story, his background, and then go through his life cycle, him being a solid and being turned into a snowman, what happens when it gets hot outside and he starts to melt, what happens as he's in the air, and then when he comes back when it starts to snow again. And they would be bringing their own personal experiences to create the personality of their snowman.